A family of four, a home you could park a car in, and somehow nobody's tripping over each other. That's the quiet contradiction sitting at the heart of Japanese living. The footprint is famously small, the storage looks like it barely exists, and yet the space breathes. It stretches. It does more than its square meters have any right to do. And none of it comes from knocking down walls or spending a fortune. It comes from dozens of small, well-judged choices, each one pulling a little extra room out of thin air. Stick around, because one of the last ones is a whole bathroom that drains itself, and it's stranger than it sounds. Every home's a little different, so take what actually fits yours. Let's start at the front door, because in Japan it isn't really a door, it's a room. The genkan is a sunken entryway, a step down from the main floor, and it does something sneaky. By carving out a clear line between outside and inside, it lets the rest of the home stay clean and open without a pile of shoes creeping into the hallway. Your eye reads that lowered floor as a boundary, and boundaries make a space feel intentional. Ordered, bigger than it is. One little step, and suddenly the home has a threshold with a job to do. Right beside that step, number 2 hides in plain sight. It's the getabako, a shoe cabinet built flush into the genkan wall. Instead of a rack sprawling across the floor, every pair tucks vertically into a slim cupboard that runs floor to ceiling. Here's the thing about vertical storage. Floors read as space, and clutter on the floor reads as chaos. Lift the mess up the wall, and the ground opens back up. Same shoes, same wall, completely different feeling of room. Third, look up. Traditional Japanese homes lean on sliding doors called fusuma, and they're a small miracle of geometry. A hinged door needs a clear arc to swing into, and that arc is dead space you can never furnish. A sliding panel needs nothing. It glides flat along the wall, so the floor it would have eaten is yours again. Multiply that by every doorway in the house, and you've quietly reclaimed a room's worth of movement. Which brings us neatly to the fourth trick, the shoji screen. Same sliding idea, but wrapped in translucent paper over a light wood frame. Shoji don't block a room, they soften it. Daylight seeps straight through the paper and spreads into a gentle glow, so a small room never feels boxed in or gloomy. You get privacy and openness at the same time, which usually feels impossible. Light travels where a solid wall would have stopped it cold, and light is the cheapest way to make anywhere feel larger. Number 5 is the floor itself. Tatami mats, woven from rush grass, come in a standard size, and that standard quietly organizes the entire room. Because a tatami is a known unit, Japanese homes are literally measured in mats. A 4.5 mat room, a 6 mat room. When every proportion snaps to a clean grid, the eye stops fighting the space and starts trusting it. Harmony reads as roominess. And the mats are soft enough to sit, eat, or sleep on. So one floor does 3 jobs. That multitasking floor sets up the 6th idea beautifully, the futon. Not the clunky Western sofa bed, but a thin, foldable mattress you roll out at night and pack away at dawn. Think about what that means. A Western bedroom is a bed and nothing else, all day, every day. A Japanese room with a futon is a bedroom for 8 hours and a living room for the other 16. Same square meters, doing double duty. Fold, stow, and the room transforms. Where does the futon go once it's folded? Number 7. The oshire, a deep built-in closet behind sliding doors sized precisely to swallow bedding whole. It's not a shallow wardrobe, it's a proper recessed cavity built into the wall structure itself. Bedding disappears, the room resets, and there's no bulky furniture hogging a corner to hold it all. Storage that vanishes into the architecture rather than standing in front of it. That's the pattern you'll see again and again here. Speaking of vanishing, the 8th feature might be the most efficient bathroom on earth, the unit bath. The whole thing, tub, shower, floor, walls, gets molded as a single waterproof shell and dropped into place. The genius is the wet room logic. The entire floor is the drain zone, so you can shower right next to the tub and the water simply goes. No splash panic, no soggy bath mat, no wasted dry corners. A tiny footprint that works as hard as a room twice its size. Now, number 9 tackles a problem every small home shares. Where do you actually get dressed and store the towels? The Japanese answer is a dedicated changing and vanity room that sits just outside that unit bath. no bigger than a closet, holding the sink, the laundry, and the mirror. Splitting these functions apart sounds like it'd use more space. It doesn't. It means the wet room stays purely wet, the dry stuff stays dry, and each little zone does one thing brilliantly instead of three things badly. The 10th one you'll feel before you notice it. Japanese kitchens often run tight and linear, one clean galley wall of counter, stove, and sink. There's a reason cooks love a galley layout. Everything's within a single pivot, no wasted steps, no marooned island stranded in the middle eating floor. A compact kitchen isn't a compromise here, it's a workflow. And a clear floor in the busiest room of the house makes the whole home feel calmer. Number 11 lives above your head and you'd walk right under it. Loft spaces, tucked beneath the roofline, turn otherwise dead air into a sleeping nook, a study, or deep storage. Japanese homes are ruthless about this. Any volume tall enough to use is a volume worth using, so they climb. A ladder or a compact stair, and suddenly there's a whole extra tier of home floating above the main floor, no bigger footprint required. That vertical instinct shows up again in the 12th feature, the skip floor or split level layout. Instead of stacking flat floors, some Japanese homes stagger levels by half a story, so you're always stepping gently up or down into a new zone. The payoff is subtle and lovely. Sightlines stretch diagonally across the whole house, your eye travels further, and a small home suddenly feels layered and deep instead of cramped and flat. Number 13 is a garden the size of a bath towel. The Tsuboniwa is a tiny interior courtyard, sometimes barely a meter square, dropped into the middle of a narrow home. A little gravel, one plant, a slab of stone. What it really delivers is light and air punched into the core of the house, plus a green view from the rooms around it. A window onto living green, however small, tricks the mind into feeling the walls stand further back. The 14th one is all about the walls you don't build. Open plan living, where kitchen, dining, and lounge share one continuous room divided only by furniture or a low change in floor. Fewer interior walls means fewer visual full stops. Your gaze runs clear from one end to the other, and uninterrupted sightlines are the oldest trick in the book for making modest square footage feel generous. Take the walls away and the room grows. Number 15 is the Engawa, a slim wooden veranda running along the edge of the house, half inside and half out. It's a threshold you can sit on, a buffer between the garden and the living room. Because it blurs where the home ends and the outdoors begins, the interior borrows the garden's depth. Your living space visually spills past the glass and keeps going. That borrowed distance is free room you never had to build. Here's a small one that punches well above its weight, the 16th. Recessed, built-in shelving set flush into the wall cavity rather than bolted on top of it. A protruding bookshelf steals floor and casts a shadow line that chops the room up. A niche sunk into the wall gives you the same storage, while the wall stays flat and unbroken. Flat walls read as calm. Calm reads as space. It's almost unfair how well it works. Number 17 borrows an idea from the tea room, the Nijiriguchi, that famously low entrance you have to stoop through. You won't find one in most modern flats, but its logic lives on. Compress a space right before you open it up. Squeeze the eye down through a low, tight passage, then release it into the main room. And that room feels far taller and wider than the tape measure says. Contrast is the whole game. Small next to big makes big feel bigger. The 18th feature is furniture that refuses to sit still. The low chabudai table folds its legs flat and slides away. Floor cushions stack in a corner, nesting pieces tuck inside each other. Nothing in a traditional room is a permanent fixture, claiming its patch forever. When the furniture can leave, the room can change its whole personality in a minute, from dinner table to open play space to somewhere to sleep. Flexible furniture, flexible home. Number 19 is a workhorse you'd never photograph, the Noren, that short split curtain hanging in a doorway. It softly signals a boundary, kitchen from hallway, private from shared, without a single solid door or the swing space one needs. Air moves through it. Light moves through it. You move through it with your hands full. It divides a home into rooms in your mind while keeping it one flowing space to your eye. Cloth doing the work of a wall and taking up none of it. The 20th trick is pure restraint, and it's the hardest one. Japanese interiors lean on a pared back palette, natural wood, paper, muted tones, and blessedly little on display. There's a real concept here, the value of empty space itself. Negative space isn't wasted space, It's the room breathing. A few carefully chosen objects against a calm background will always feel larger than a room crammed with stuff because the emptiness gives your eye somewhere to rest. Less, quite literally, becomes more. And that lands us on the 21st, which ties the whole philosophy in a bow. Multifunction rooms with no fixed purpose at all. A single tatami room might be a bedroom at night, a dining room at noon, a guest room on the weekend, and a study in between, and it changes without you moving a wall. That's the through line behind every feature on this list. Instead of assigning one job to each room, the Japanese home assigns whatever job the moment needs and lets the space flow between them. One room, endless lives. So here's what actually stretches these homes, and it was never a bigger blueprint. It's the sunken step at the door that slides instead of swings, the mattress that vanishes by morning, the emptiness left deliberately unfilled. Small, sharp choices, stacked one on the next, until the whole place quietly outperforms its footprint. That family of four still isn't tripping over each other, and now you can see why. Borrow even a couple of these ideas. Take what fits your own four walls, and watch a modest room start to feel like it grew overnight.